Number 4, discussion proposed resolution, NISAC opt-in provision to enact a local law authorizing the sale and use of smaller fireworks such as sparklers or sparkler devices. And we have received quite a bit of correspondence on that, which some of it we requested and some of it received just out of interest on the project. And the first one is from the Sheriff's Department, and I would like to mention the line there. He basically said on a letter dated to me on March 3rd that he and his staff has reviewed the information and feel that even though there's some risk with any type of incendiary device, passing a county law authorizing the sale and use of these devices would not necessarily increase the risk. And his experience is that we have had very few injuries pertaining to these devices, and therefore we cannot provide any legitimate objection to passing such law. So I appreciated that correspondence from the Sheriff's Department regarding that issue. The second piece of correspondence was from NISAC, and it's their opt-in provision, which was their correspondence related to what the state has online and what we're looking at changes, how changes could take effect. And I'd like to read a couple of these things in part just to put us on track here. It says, due to the state regulation change, any local law regarding this matter stating where business need to register of the original local law should be changed to the New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control. Or in the alternative should read, all distributors, manufacturers, and retailers must comply with any or all state laws and regulations. And just as an overview, the governor's going along with that, only allowing certain fireworks to be sold and used in municipalities that affirmatively enact the local law. So there's support at the executive level. And just to pinpoint the kind of devices we're talking about, it's sparklers. You remember as a youngster, a handheld sparkler, which is a small, very small item. And they're ground-based or handheld, and they're different colors, gold and white, and they all set off little colors, and they sort of burn out as it goes through. And I also want, in line with the definition there, I wanted to thank the legislator Nasarino for 4C, which you picked up at NISAC, which shows a photograph, a print rather, of the kinds of ground-based or handheld devices, which really restates what the state law is talking about. Cylindrical-based fountains, hand fountains, spike fountains, and cone fountains. These things are okay. They're ground-based. Wooden sparklers, dipsticks, and party poppers they talk about, and that they would be okay. But was prohibited beyond that would be skyrockets and Roman candles and reloading shell devices and aerials and some of the things that we associate with 4th of July when commercial companies come to the community and explode all kinds of things. They would not be allowed. They would not be part of this law. It mentions firecrackers here. It doesn't say what size, so I assume it's all firecrackers. Wheels, single tube devices, and ball and disc item, which is a cylindrical thing that does move around, and smoke bombs, smoke cones, and I didn't see it mentioned, but I know M80s are not allowed either, which is my favorite item. But you used to be able to go to Connecticut to purchase them and bring it back to New York and use them, but that was a long time ago. So I want to thank you, Jenny, for bringing that to NISAC, from NISAC to us for our, so that was 4C. Let's see, 4D was from the law department, and basically.
That's in the confidential envelope, just so you know, for you guys.
Right, it was a confidential envelope, and the law department took a look at the state law and what we were looking to do. Said the sale and use of small fireworks such as sparklers or sparkler devices in accordance with New York State Chapter 477, the laws of 2014, and so forth. And it goes on to say that this was amended, the New York State Chapter Law 477 was amended to state that no city or county shall be bound to include sparkling devices in the definition of fireworks and dangerous fireworks. So the state law is being modified to allow for those. There's another piece of that I did want to read. Let's see, which I thought was pretty self-explanatory. On the talks about, again, sparkling devices, cylindrical and fountain devices, which I mentioned from the sketching item, cone and fountain, cardboard or heavy paper cone containing not more than 50 grams of pyrotechnic composition. Wooden sparkle dipstick, these devices consist of wood dowel and have been coated with pyrotechnic composition. And the novelties, the party popper and the snapper, which are small items that just basically make a noise and have very little in the way of any kind of actual fuel in them. The big thing here too is this whole regulation, whether it's state or local, would only be permitted, allow the sale under a licensed retail outlets between June 1st through July 5th and December 26th through January 2nd of each calendar year. So there really is an isolated time frame when you can purchase these items. All distributors, manufacturers, and retailers must be licensed with the state of New York. So it's a pretty concise regulation, I think, that's being proposed here. I have another piece of correspondence 4E, which is part of overall 4. This is from the county executive. She's in agreement with the proposed change to the local law. There's no issue with the administration of Putnam County. I did want to mention another correspondence 4F, which is from the B.J. Allen Company. They do make pyrotechnic items, so you can imagine they would be in favor of the item. They make some interesting comments that I would like to read. The first paragraph near the bottom, it says, by enacting this local law, many of your constituents will already travel out of state, and we know people go to Pennsylvania and New Hampshire for these items. For larger fireworks, will stay right here in the home instead and use these smaller, safer devices rather than traveling out of state. Another part on the third bullet, the correspondence talks about the Department of State requires that any venue used for sale or storage of sparkler devices must be in compliance with the National Fire Protection Association standards, and that's certainly a given. This legislation would actually improve safety, according to the Allen Company, by encouraging New Yorkers to buy their sparklers and sparkler devices in the state, thus bypassing the more explosive fireworks. And it mentions here that Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont have also legalized these specific items, and I am familiar with the state of New Hampshire, and they also have legalized those items and more. At this point, I would like to also mention one other piece of correspondence, which came from Chief Scott, who was with us here, from the Putnam County Fire Chiefs Association. This was dated March 8th, and it was addressed to me. And I'd like to ask you to come up, Chief Scott, if you would. Yeah, sure. And I'll read a couple of items here you mentioned. I want you to certainly have your due process to have a stay on this item. Your association consists of active and past chiefs of the 13 volunteer fire departments and active and past captains of 4 volunteer ambulance corps. And you have something to say about these particular items, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Hi, my name is Edward Scott. I am a resident of the town of Kent. I'm an ex-chief of the Mahopac Fire Department. Been in the fire service now for 38 years. The Putnam County Fire Chiefs Association, as I said, it's a group made up of the chiefs in the county. It's not the fire advisory board that you guys just reestablished. We are a social group, so to speak. It was formed back in 1974 as a way of the fire departments to get together and talk amongst themselves of various matters in the fire service. But it's actually in our bylaws that one of the things is to interest supervisors, mayors, trustees, and went on a few other things of towns and villages of basically of firematic matters, including fire prevention. This was before legislators, it was back when it was Board of Supervisors. But anyway, the Fire Chiefs Association is opposed to this. The fire service throughout New York State is opposed to the legislation. FASNY is the Firemen's Association in the state of New York. It's the lobbying group in Albany representing over 60,000 volunteer firefighters. The New York State Association of Fire Chiefs is a statewide chiefs organization, 11,000 members also opposing it. FASNY uses a lot of the NFPA statistics, and you know, lobbying group is going to give you their side, the opposition give their side. But just from the NFPA reports, I have a couple copies here. In 2011, there were 17,800 fires related to have been started by all types of fireworks. Okay, 9,600 fireworks-related injuries. 25% are children under 15 years of age. The NFPA reports that sparklers, your common sparkler that we're talking about, burns at over 1,200 degrees. Wood burns at 575, glass melts at 900. So giving these to people increases the chance of injury. NFPA is opposed to any consumer use of fireworks. Includes sparklers and firecrackers, even sparklers burn hot enough to cause third-degree burns, and recommend, as we do, that people attend the public demonstrations which are done by licensed professionals. The New York State Consumer Product Safety Commission just issued a report. In 2013, there were 8 fireworks-related deaths and an estimated over 11,400 emergency department treated injuries due to fireworks, with sparklers responsible for approximately 31%. So the chiefs and, like I said, the leadership of the fire service in the county is opposed to it. One of the things I saw in the New York State Association of Counties briefing was talking about economic impact and sales tax, and we don't feel that the amount that you're going to get in sales tax revenue is worth the risk. The New York State Chiefs Association is concerned with the storage of them. The law allows for temporary, which would be setting up tents like we've seen over on Mill Plain Road in Connecticut, and also for permanent in other buildings. So the gas station on the corner, every gas station on every corner will be selling sparklers and fireworks. And they're not just going to buy them the week before the 4th of July. They're going to buy them and store them in their buildings. We don't know where in their buildings, in their back rooms, which are filled with cardboard with their potato chips and soda, and et cetera, increasing your fire risk on your firefighters going into the buildings.
Okay. Legislator, have any comment about this? Legislator Nasser?
Yes.
Statistically, from Putnam County's perspective, I feel that I would be voting in favor of this tonight.
Okay.
I think for a number of reasons. The governor signed it into law in November to allow certain sparklers and sales for consumer fireworks. And also, this handout that I did receive in Albany names some very credible organizations
Right.
that have used them, and we haven't heard any incidents or accidents that would cause me to be overly concerned about that. And I think from a safety perspective, having something in-house within our own borders will give us more control and provide us the ability to provide a safer environment rather than living so close to Connecticut or other state borders where we might be buying or people might be purchasing things that are more dangerous in nature.
I understand you're concerned, but people are going to buy them no matter where they are. I just don't like to make them that readily available. You said statistics. Again, I have Consumer Product Safety Commission and National Fire Protection Association statistics. We all know statistics go back and forth on either side, and I'm not smart enough to memorize any of these. I had to write down what I was going to say as it was.
Well, we all
Yeah.
do, but I think the sheriff
yeah.
wasn't concerned either. I think if there was some incidents or accidents that occurred, he would cause for concern as well. I know that would be his priority to do so. And I just feel that this is not going to be, I think this would do more good than it would harm, in the sense that we would have more control over the devices that we are allowed to sell and the people within Putnam County who purchase them, rather than now it's open season for anybody to get anything anywhere during the 4th of July season.
And it still will be when you enact this legislation, because if they don't want to buy this, and we know sparklers are nice. I have them in my house with my nephews and nieces, but everybody goes over to Mill Plain Road and buys the stuff that shoots the sparks, or they drive over the hour into Pennsylvania and get the stuff that makes the noises.
Right.
We're just opposed to making it easier here to get them.
It perhaps just might lessen the impact somewhat.
We don't feel so, but that's,
I
yeah.
absolutely respect your opinion.
In the last 5 years, you know if there's been any incidents?
I honestly, legislature, I couldn't tell you. Even with my job, as you know, I worked for the Bureau of Emergency Services, a dispatcher for Bob Lipton there, and I'd never even thought to go back and look. I know on 4th of July, call volume does go up a little bit, but I could not give you any type of accurate statistics.
Okay. Yes, Bob?
To answer that question, actually going more than 5 years back is probably 15, 20 years ago, right across from Kent Schools. I myself was on a very large incident on the 4th of July at a resident right across from Kent Schools there, involving fireworks, where we had, I think we ended up with about 20 injured people due to a firework accident. And statistically, if you watch New York City, as we all do, get the news every day from the city, The week of the 4th of July is the most active week for the FDNY, with the 4th of July being the most active day for the FDNY. And it's not just, you know, the big fireworks, it's the small stuff too. But yes, there have been accidents here in Putnam County, and like I said, going back quite a few years ago, there was a rather large accident.
That specific one you're talking about, was that a major firework thing, M80s and that type of thing, or was it?
It was a party. It was a party where they had, you know, a little bit of everything there, and it got out of hand, and they had an explosion of fireworks, and, yeah, I would say 15, 20 people were injured at that.
Legislator LeBouf?
Through the chair, I'm in agreement with Eddie Scott. You know, I'm a little bit concerned. You know, years ago, like with so many other vices, everybody used to do everything in excess, including my family with the M80s and everything. And then as we got older, and I had seen as a child, I had seen people really getting injured, even with sparklers. And you know, when you discuss fireworks or sparklers and you talk about responsible families, maybe it's not an issue. But when you talk about people that are not so responsible with their children, and to me this is another, we're kind of going in reverse. And the burden will fall on the fire department and the police department. And I'm thinking of the enforcement. Who's going to enforce the businesses now to make sure that they are only buying the product during the time period? You know, there's a lot of enforcement here, and it comes with a cost. So I'm kind of a little bit hesitant to go in reverse. And I understand the governor's point of view, because I believe this is all about economics, and they think that this will maybe bring in some additional revenue and sales tax. But I'm really hesitant about moving forward with this, because it really is a safety issue, especially for young children. You know, we're not talking about the bigger explosives, but it's like, you know, it's like anything else that has become illegal. You know, I just think we shouldn't go back.
I know vendors will have to be permitted, you know, they'll have to go through a procedure and all. I'm sure there'll be a storage issue. Yes, go
Would
ahead.
that be through the state or through consumer affairs when we say they need to be licensed? That was my question.
That's a good question. I would assume it would be a state permit for fireworks. I'm guessing on that, though.
I believe it says through OFPC.
Yeah.
That'd be licensed by OFPC. I believe I read that into a little bit.
I'm sure the enforcement would be strong. Yes, Legislator Urbana?
I'd be in favor for it. You know, I have 5 children, 38 years. I haven't seen any real injuries from the small stuff. And if it's going to be here anyway, I think it gives the police more stuff to do if they got to worry about that. Minor things like that, I think they could enjoy it. And, you know, there's always a risk. I respect the fire chief's opinion, because when it comes to fire, that is an issue. But again, I haven't seen anything to put me in that direction right now. So I think it's a minor thing that they can enjoy.
I think one important thing is the kinds of definitions to fireworks that would be for sale are different from these neighboring states. It might encourage people to stay home and get the lesser explosive devices rather than traveling to these neighboring states.
I agree. I don't think it diminishes those who intend to purchase either way. But I do think it gives us the ability to have a little bit more control, and hopefully people buy the ones that are less dangerous than the ones that are more dangerous.
I also think we probably, if this thing ended up to be a bad choice, if we approve this from the legislature, we could always revisit it. If it's a terrible time we had, and
But you don't
rescind
want a
it.
safety issue, Roger, if I could. You know, you're going to reverse it after people have gotten hurt. If that's why we'd be reversing it.
Well, if it was a situation, we have to look at the devices. Maybe they were buying things out of state anyway. You know, there'd have to be some investigation done. But I'm actually in favor of it, for the idea of it being a little more controlled. But I welcome your comments. I appreciate your point of view. Any other legislators like to comment on any further piece of this proposal?
I don't know if Legislator Gilman asked this question. I think he did, but from the 911 perspective, have you received many calls?
Again, I wouldn't be able to speak on that without having gone back and researched it, and I'm not really authorized to speak on that. Or I'm not here, you know, for that matter. I refer that to the acting Commissioner Lipton.
Legislator Castellano?
Do we know where the neighboring counties are? I mean, because I do know, I live in Brewster,
Right.
right across the border, you see them all the time, in those temporary tents on the road there.
It is,
What about Dutchess and Rockland?
If I may, I know, just by the, information I received from FASNY, that it's been discussed in Saratoga County and Niagara County. And again, it's the same thing, the county looking to move forward and the fire service looking to block.
I did seemed to me there were quite a few counties that had approved it. I can't put my finger on the exact.
I don't remember seeing it in the NISAC, information.
Excuse, Roger, I just want to.
Yes.
In the dollar store, I see the sparklers and these poppets all the time.
Yeah, and those are illegal. They're just
Do
doing
they
it.
sell
for
them
this-
in there?
Yeah.
So they are being sold
Yeah.
currently?
Illegally, yes. Because there's nobody, nobody complains about it, and
Well, I just
Yeah.
told you.
Nobody enforces it.
yeah, nobody enforces it, yeah.
You know, Tony, I was gonna say the same thing. I've seen these items pop up in all in stores.
They sell all the time.
Again, they do,
Dispensation.
especially around the holiday season.
No,
Yes.
and even other times, yeah, all the time.
Now when you go in the gas station and everything in the mobile mart, that's what you're gonna find.
I spoke with a legislative council. If we were to approve this, there'd be a change in the local law. Section 95 to Section 96 would incorporate the terminology and the specific devices and the permitting and so forth. And if there's no further discussion, I guess.
If the legislature approves it, will the state tell the county who's licensed to sell it? So the law enforcement can go and see who is and who isn't?
I would
That could be a
imagine
better control of the situation.
licensing procedure, I'm sure you have to apply to the state to get a license, and you'd have to meet certain responsibilities. As far as the sheriff's department being notified of the licensees, I don't know how that might play.
I don't know if it would be a sheriff's or a
Some of
codes
theirs-
enforcement type of
Code
thing.
enforcement, yeah, might fall to code enforcement.
It could be, if we approved it, it could be a better handle on whether that is actually
Absolutely.
happening on a county level.
I was wondering if you folks would feel in favor of moving this to the full.
I would be in
discussion.
favor.
I'd like to make a motion to move
Make
it
that
to the
motion,
vote.
okay?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm gonna push it to the full then, and, Chief, coming up in
Thank you.
April, you might wanna come to the full meeting.
Perhaps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
being here, appreciate it. Okay. We basically covered number 5 in our